When Jesus was in his late 20s, he had been busy teaching people all around the area. After a long day of teaching, Jesus told his disciples, "Let's go across to the other side of the lake." So they got into the boat and Jesus with them. And after a while, the disciples saw Jesus sleeping. It was late afternoon, the sun was setting over the lake. They didn't know where they were going, but it was going to be a long trip. Most likely they were tired and ready to rest. But suddenly a strong wind began to blow and big waves started crashing into the boat. The wind grew stronger and stronger until it became a violent storm. The rain poured down. The waves crashed into the boat. The disciples looked at each other in fear. They were worried that the boat would sink and they would all drown. In fact, they thought for sure that they were going to die. They looked over at Jesus and he was still sleeping peacefully. As the storm continued to get worse, they finally woke Jesus up and said, "Hey teacher, don't you care that we're about to die?" They were scared. They wanted Jesus to do something before it was too late. But Jesus calmly stood up, looked out over the storm and said, "Quiet, be still." And suddenly the wind stopped blowing. The waves stopped crashing and there was a great calm over the lake. The disciples couldn't believe what they were seeing. They asked each other, "What happened? What did Jesus do? How could he stop the storm like that?" They were amazed because they realized that Jesus had complete control over nature. He wasn't just a good teacher. He was the Son of God. In this story, we see three important lessons that we need to remember. First, we see Jesus asleep in the boat during the storm. This shows us that even when there is trouble in our lives, Jesus is always in control. He is not surprised by anything that happens. He knows everything that is going to happen before it happens, and he is always with us to help us. We don't have to worry about anything because Jesus is with us. Second, we see the disciples afraid in the boat. This shows us that it is okay to be afraid when things are difficult. But we need to remember that Jesus is with us and he loves us, so we should trust him even when we are afraid. The disciples didn't have to be afraid because Jesus was in the boat with them. They should have remembered that he was with them and he would take care of them. Third, we see Jesus calm the storm with one word. This shows us that Jesus has the power to solve any problem. He is stronger than any force of evil, and he wants to help us. We don't have to try to fix everything ourselves. We can bring our problems to Jesus and he will help us. One day, Jesus was teaching a large crowd of people. He had been teaching for many hours. They listened carefully to every word he said. They were amazed at how much he knew. When the sun began to set, he told his disciples, "Let's cross over to the other side of the lake." So they got into a boat, and Jesus went with them. It was going to be a long trip, but they didn't mind. They liked being with Jesus. Suddenly, the wind started to blow hard. The waves started to crash into the boat. The disciples were afraid. They had never seen such a bad storm. They struggled to keep the boat from sinking. They looked over at Jesus, and he was sleeping. They didn't understand why he didn't wake up. They called out to him and said, "Hey, teacher, don't you care that we're in danger? Don't you care that we're going to die?" Jesus opened his eyes slowly. He looked at the disciples and then at the storm. He reached out his hand and said, "Quiet, be still." And suddenly the wind stopped blowing. The waves stopped crashing. There was a great calm over the lake. The disciples couldn't believe what they were seeing. They couldn't believe that Jesus had stopped the storm with just one word. They asked him, "Who are you?" "You are the Son of God. We believe in you." Jesus told them not to tell anyone about this, but soon everyone knew what had happened. People came from all around to hear about the amazing things Jesus had done. They were amazed at his power and glory. They had never seen anything like him before. We can learn several lessons from this story. First, we see that even when things are hard, we should trust Jesus. He is always in control. He cares about us, and he will help us. Second, we see that Jesus has the power to change everything. He can make our problems go away with just one word. We don't have to try to fix everything ourselves. We can bring our problems to Jesus and he will help us. Third, we see that Jesus wants us to believe in him. He wants us to know that he is the Son of God and that he can save us. The next time you are going through a hard time, remember this story. Trust Jesus. He is with you and he loves you. Many years ago, a ship was sailing across the ocean. Suddenly, a huge storm appeared. The waves were very high. The wind was very strong. The sailors were scared. They thought that their ship would sink. They prayed to God for help. Suddenly the storm stopped. The waves became calm. The wind became still. The sailors were very happy. They thanked God for saving them. One day, some fishermen were out in their boat. It was a small boat, but it was strong. Suddenly, a big wave hit the boat. It was very scary. The fishermen were afraid that their boat would flip over. They held on tight to the boat. Suddenly, one of the fishermen saw a man standing in the boat. It was Jesus. He looked at the fishermen and said, "Don't be afraid. I am here to help you." Then Jesus reached out his hand, and the boat became calm. The fishermen were amazed. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. They had never seen anything like this before. One day, Jesus was walking along the beach. It was a beautiful day. The sun was shining. The birds were singing. Suddenly, a strong wind started to blow. A small boat was sailing in the distance. The wind was making the boat go further and further away. People on the beach were getting worried. They thought that the people in the boat would never make it back to shore. Suddenly, Jesus said, "Don't be afraid. I am here to help you." Then Jesus walked into the water and started walking towards the boat. The people on the beach were amazed. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. They had never seen anything like this before. This story teaches us 3 important lessons. First, we see that Jesus has the power to calm the storms in our lives. No matter how difficult things may seem, Jesus is always with us and he wants to help us. Second, we see that Jesus wants us to believe in him. He wants us to know that he is the Son of God and that he can save us. Third, we see that Jesus loves us very much. He is always willing to help us. All we have to do is ask him. When I think of this story, I remember that Jesus loves me very much. He wants to help me. All I have to do is ask him. I know that no matter what happens in my life, Jesus is with me. He will help me. He will guide me. He will give me strength. I know that Jesus is my friend. And remember, no matter what happens in your life, Jesus is with you. He loves you and he wants to help you. All you have to do is ask him. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you haven't already, please subscribe so you don't miss any of our future videos. Thank you for watching.